various variations on this question as well. Is evolution compatible with Scripture, with the God of the Bible? There were variations on that question.
Remember this question, and try to notice how well our speakers stay on topic today.
A couple things. You have to distinguish between macroevolution and microevolution. There's not just one monolithic theory of evolution out there. There are all kinds of theories of evolution out there.
Yes, this is correct. There are multiple different theories of evolution. Joshua Moritz, in a lecture I'll link below, shares and describes at least 8 different theories of evolution. Some as old as Darwin, some that recently came to arise in the last 20 years or so. These include Lamarckian evolution, Darwinian natural selection, Neo-Darwinian evolution, niche construction, evolution through symbiogenesis, self-organization, Evo-Devo, and process structuralism. But here we run into our first major issue. Macroevolution and microevolution are not on this list. The only 2 kinds of evolution that Sproul brings up here. Why is this? Could it be because Sproul doesn't understand macro and microevolution? I'm sure the majority of people on this platform are thoroughly familiar with Young Earth Creationists rejecting macroevolution but keeping microevolution for convenience.
Microevolution means that there are developmental changes within species, that's documented. We know that takes place. But macroevolution is a whole philosophical view where all life emerges fortuitously from a single cell and all of that.
Okay, there's a couple of things wrong here. First of all, evolution, macro or micro, is not philosophy. Sure, you can base a philosophy in evolution, but evolution in of itself is a scientific explanation for diversity amongst species. A lot of Christians claim that this philosophy or belief in evolution is what drove the Nazis and caused slavery and stuff like that. However, these claims are paper-thin on evidence, and it doesn't help that evolution is a description of a natural process, not a doctrine that we have to follow. The other thing that I want to draw attention to is the fact that you contrast micro and macroevolution by claiming that microevolution has been documented. And I'm guessing that you want to make the claim that macroevolution hasn't been documented, because it has. A lot. Ring species are the perfect counter-argument to this ideology. Ring species is a phenomenon that occurs when a species begins populating around a large geological structure. These species then micro-evolve all the way around the structure to form a ring. But when both of the ends meet, they have micro-evolved to the point of being unable to interbreed. This is the marker that most scientists use to determine when one species has separated. That is to say, macroevolution has occurred. The most common example of ring species from what I've gathered is the example of the greenish warbler. This bird originated in the southern Himalayas according to most biologists. As its population grew, it extended its territory around the Tibetan plateau, which was not a suitable habitat for the warbler. They started from the south, spread around the east and west sides of the plateau, micro-evolving along the way. But when both sides met at the north side of the plateau, forming a ring, they could not interbreed with each other. The side to the east had micro-evolved again and again to fit the environment on the east, and the warblers on the west side had micro-evolved to fit the environment on the west side. By the time they had met at the top, they were no longer the same species, because they could no longer interbreed. The definition of a species is a group of living organisms consisting of similar individuals capable of exchanging genes or interbreeding. This means that speciation, or macroevolution as I understand it, has occurred. A macro step has occurred in the evolution of the greenish warbler. This has been documented, and many other examples of speciation have been documented as well. In the description, I'll leave a link to a list of other documented examples of speciation, as well as 2 YouTube videos on ring species that I referenced. One from Rationality Rules and the other from Pathlor54, sorry if I butchered the name. I would highly recommend these videos if you are interested in a better explanation of ring species. In conclusion, microevolution builds and builds over time into macroevolution. I believe Holy Kool-Aid put it this way: saying that you believe in microevolution but not macroevolution is like saying you believe in water drops but you don't believe in lakes or oceans. Microevolution is macroevolution. It's the same thing, just on different scales. But wait, weren't we supposed to be talking about theistic evolutionism?
Or from the singularity that we were hearing about. But that is not, first of all, no, that's not compatible with the Bible.
Why not? You're gonna give us some reasons as to why evolution isn't compatible with Scripture, right?
Okay. Second of all, it's not compatible with science. Okay?
Not compatible with science? I feel like that's just lousy wording. I mean, even if evolution was false, you could still run it through the scientific method to demonstrate that it was false. Better wording would probably be science has shown evolution to be false, but that isn't true anyway, so...
I want to tell just a little story, a Ravi-like story here. I was teaching a senior philosophy elective in a university at one point, and this question of evolution came up. It wasn't a science class, it was a philosophy class. And I said, well, let me just stop for a second and take a poll here of the students. I said, how many of you in this class believe in evolution? Every single hand went up, 30 students. I said, fine. I said, now, as a matter of understanding epistemological systems and so on, let me just ask you to tell me here why you believe in evolution. We can't go through all of the tiny details, but let's get the big arguments, the ones that have been most persuasive and most convincing to you. And I went up to the blackboard and I said, number one, there's silence. I said, come on now, we want to evaluate this as a philosophical view. What is it that persuaded you?
You cannot evaluate evolution as a philosophical view because evolution is not a philosophy. Anyway, this is clearly going in the direction of no one knows why they believe this thing, so therefore it's irrational and they were brainwashed in school to believe said thing. But I don't find this argument to be particularly compelling. I mean, if someone were to ask me in a class why I believe that gravity is true, I wouldn't have much to say other than this is what I was taught in school. And I trust the scientists who came to the conclusion that gravity is the best theory that explains the evidence we observe. I feel like your story carries significantly less weight because it's a philosophy class. Maybe if this was a biology class and none of your students knew how to defend their stance on evolution, it would be a much bigger deal.
One student who went on to his PhD in Harvard, who was a very brilliant student, he said, one of the arguments that's persuaded me is the idea that all living things are made out of the basic same proteins and amino acids and that sort of things, and so common substance equals common source. And then I started to look at some of the laws of logic and fallacy and showed how that is a fallacious argument, which he saw. And I said, okay.
Wait. Whoa, hold on. How is the argument fallacious? You're just gonna move right along without telling us which fallacy this idea comes from. You said that your student, who was very smart, came up to you with an idea that convinced him evolution was true, which you boiled down to common substance equals common source. Okay. I mean, that wasn't the number one thing that convinced me that evolution was true, but sounds reasonable. Then you said you looked at the laws of logic and fallacies and showed that it was a fallacious argument, and you showed it to your student, who was very smart, and he understood why it was fallacious. But then you're not going to take the extra second to tell your audience which fallacy it was? Fallacies come in names, like the straw man fallacy or the false dichotomy. It pisses me off to no end that you couldn't cite which laws of logic showed this line of reasoning to be fallacious. The idea that your student brought forth can be extrapolated to explore further similarities as well. He said, according to your story, that common substance equals common source. But that isn't just for the substances, it's also for the biological structures themselves. These are called homologous structures. For example, as humans, we all have a humerus bone, a pair of bones on the forearm being the radius and ulna. We have a cluster of bones called the carpals, and the fingers consist of metacarpals and phalanges. Well, guess what? Cats have the exact same bone structure as humans. Humerus, carpals to phalanges. All of it. And guess what? Whales do too. And so do bats. This is evidence that all of these animals had a common ancestor, and they each took separate evolutionary paths from one to another. This is one of the first pieces of evidence in favor of evolution, and you say it's a fallacious argument. Okay, what is the fallacy then?
What are the other arguments? I couldn't get any. I tried. I wasn't trying to intimidate anybody. I said, come on. Finally, it came out. That's what I was taught in my high school biology class.
That's it.
And that was the biggest reason I could get out of these people. And I said, well, keep in mind that a question of the origin of life, for example, is not, in the final analysis, a biological question. It's a historical question.
Obvious young Earth creationist who doesn't know what they're talking about is obvious. Evolution does not deal with the origin of life. Young Earth creationists have been told this time and time again. This video is old, so I'll let it pass for now, but abiogenesis is the field that deals with the origin of life, not evolution. Evolution has to do with speciation and the diversity of life, not the origin.
And biologists can pitch in by looking at the structures of cells and that sort of thing, but they can't really tell you how it started.
To be fair, there isn't much known about abiogenesis at the moment, so no, biologists can't give you a detailed description of how life started exactly to the detail-filled degree that you would want, but biology has shown that evolution is true, and can definitely confirm that the Earth is older than 6,000 years, that's for sure. And we're supposed to be talking about evolution, not abiogenesis. But actually, we're supposed to be talking about theistic evolutionism. But you went down a rabbit hole so fast there was no chance of you ever getting back on topic.
I would simply add that the dominant evolutionary model is pure naturalism and materialism.
Yeah, sure it is. But as a theistic evolutionist, I obviously don't believe it was pure naturalism. Obviously. So can we talk about theistic evolutionism now, please?
And the closer you look at what is now presented as evolutionary theory, which does have its own genetic roots right in Darwin and Darwinism. And
evolution has genetic roots in Darwin? A scientific theory has genetic roots in Charles Darwin, a biological human being. Nitpicky, I know, but you guys could really use some better wording.
Let's remember that Darwin did not invent evolution. Evolutionary thought was around long before Darwin.
Evolutionary thought? What the frick does that even mean? No, Darwin did not invent evolution. Evolution was still going on before he discovered it. It would still be going on today if no one ever discovered it. Darwin simply discovered that evolution was occurring. Duh. But evolutionary thought? What? I can think of a few different things that could mean, but I'm too scared to assume any of it.
In fact, Darwin's grandfather was notorious in Britain as an evolutionist before Darwin was ever born.
He was more well known for his poems about plant sex. But it seems as though, according to my research, that he wasn't well known for being an evolutionist. But he did write about evolution before his grandson. Anyway, why are we talking about this again?
But nonetheless, when you talk about evolution and you talk about what is taught in the high schools and what you're likely to confront in almost any form in the culture, you're talking about absolute naturalism, which means the universe is a closed box, that everything has to be explained in purely natural principles. And you need to understand that rules out any intervention, any sourcing, any creation, anything like that.
But again, we're talking about theistic evolutionism here. Most theistic evolutionists believe that God guided evolution. That's intervention. Do you know what theistic means? Because I can tell you what it doesn't mean. Pure naturalism.
So the bottom line is, no, if you just need shorthand, please hear me say, evolution is not compatible with Christianity, period. The more you understand Christianity, the more you understand evolution, you'll see the incompatibility.
The more I studied Christianity, specifically the opening chapters of Genesis, the more I realized how a literal interpretation of those chapters was inappropriate, especially when you understand the Hebrew. All that I'm saying is that I took the time to research both evolution and scripture, and I came to the opposite conclusion you did. I love the Bible more because of my understanding of evolution, and I love evolution more because of my understanding of the Bible. All right, quick story time. At this point in the video, Ravi is going to answer the question. The reason I found this video in the first place was because I was searching specifically for Ravi's opinion on the topic of theistic evolutionism while I was still a Young Earth Creationist myself. It was his opinion that I really came here for, no disrespect to the other two speakers. I'm a bit of a fan of Ravi's. So let's see what you have to offer.
He's right, they're right. I'm with them.
Oh, so you're saying that they're right and that you're with them. So you're saying that you didn't identify anything in the past 5 minutes or so that you found wrong? Huh. That's weird. I found 1, 2, 6, carry the 1. About 14 problems with what the other two said according to my script. And I'm a freaking homeschooler. So, not really off to the greatest of starts, but I'll let you continue. I'm sure you have something better to say.
But you know, the irony of it is, as these men well know, today for any academics in the arena...
Wait, I know where this is going.
To even say anything like that is to risk completely being an outcast.
The fricking victim card. Why, Ravi, did you have to volunteer to drop the fricking victim card before the other two?
Right. Very few philosophies in the world are as bigoted as liberalism.
Liberalism? Are we talking about fricking politics now? We're supposed to be talking about evolutionary creationism. The frick?
It's hard to find a liberal.
I don't care if liberals are bigots. Answer the fricking question.
Liberalism is the most bigoted philosophy around today. I made that comment at an open forum, and I got a letter from a congressman, senator, I don't remember his name, and he took issue with me. He was a liberal, and he was very upset with this statement. I said, if you truly are a liberal, tell me why it is that in all of the mainline divinity schools, when the conservatives were in control, students were taught what the counter perspective is.
All right, look. For 5 years, I took Liberty University Online Academy from grade 8 all the way through the end of high school. Now, I think it was in my 11th grade or 10th grade, I'm not sure, but I took a biology class through LUOA. It was around this time that I was getting into apologetics, and so evolution was a hot topic for me. Now, Liberty is all about Young Earth Creationism, right? And they're super conservative. Like Jerry Falwell Jr. recommending we all get guns conservative. Okay, So in this biology class, I remember specifically towards the very beginning of the course, there was 2 lessons on evolution. Maybe it was just one, maybe it was a little bit more. I don't remember. All I know is that there was a very small portion of the entire class dedicated to explaining bits and pieces about evolution. I remember they showed a video from a non-Young Earth Creationist source showing an example of natural selection with butterflies turning black during the Industrial Revolution. However, this video didn't sufficiently explain natural selection, but rather just showed an example. It wasn't a sufficient example to explain evolution and natural selection, and I know this because I would have believed it to be true right then and there. All of the material was prefaced with, "We do not believe this," and a continual reminder that what we were being taught in these particular lessons on evolution was not factual or not what Christians believe. I can only remember so much, but one of the things that I remember that I look back on as a positive, actually, was they vaguely stated that evolution doesn't necessarily claim that we evolved from monkeys. I see this as a good thing because the vast majority of Young Earth Creationists base their understanding of evolution off of this picture, the March of Progress, which is a terribly flawed depiction of evolution due to its linear nature. So I do see that as a step in the right direction on Liberty's part. However, evolution is never brought up again in this course. It shows up for a week at the very beginning, briefly going over some of it as some ideas some idiots believe because they hate God and want to have premarital sex. Bit exaggerated, but they do not do evolution justice in the least. But it gets even worse. For the rest of the course, Liberty often used YouTube videos to help teach in their lesson. Some of these YouTube videos came from Bozeman Biology, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who teaches that evolution is true and that the Earth is old. So, what they did is they would paste what I would assume is a special YouTube link that would start the video at a certain timestamp when you hit play. For example, when we were learning about fungi, the YouTube video would completely skip over the part where he would talk about how closely humans were related to fungi on the evolutionary tree. So any evolutionary ideas were censored from any non-Young Earth Creationist sources from that 1 week on to the best of Liberty's ability. So when you praise conservatives for how well they show the other side of the argument, I disagree. I'm not a liberal. I'm not defending liberalism, but I know when you need to get the frick off your high horse. Moreover, I'm curious what you think about liberals who don't believe in evolution. The vast majority of liberals believe that evolution is true, but what about the ones who don't? Are they bigots too? What about the conservatives who believe that evolution is true? Are they bigots? I know you aren't really talking about these political parties in relationship to their stance on evolution, and you're just generalizing liberals and as bigots and conservatives as the open-minded heroes, but once again, we're supposed to be talking about evolution. Wait, no, we're not supposed to be talking about evolution. We're supposed to be talking about theistic evolution. You have dragged this so freaking off topic, it's unbelievable. But unlike you, Ravi, I do my best to stay on topic despite the fact that I have an attention span of a squirrel. Okay. This was my first scripted video ever. This has been exhausting. I definitely don't know that I can do this for the rest of my pitiful existence. There was a lot said there. I was going to cut in the past few minutes of this clip, but all I would have to say is what? And can you answer the question now, please? And I've already done that a million times. I could research these claims, but I have no motivation. They have nothing to do with the question. The question was, is evolution compatible with Scripture? The first answer from our first speaker was no, but he provided no reason as to why it wasn't compatible with Scripture and instead decided to go on a rabbit trail about how it wasn't compatible with science based on a straw man of evolution and a faulty definition of science. The second speaker said, no, and provided no examples. And the third said, yeah, they right. We such victims, boo-hoo, and them liberals are bigots. Not sure if he was avoiding the question or if he was just too excited to go off topic. Either way, this video was one of many videos that would leave me dissatisfied with the claims of young Earth creationists. And so it deserves some gratitude regardless.